4 p.m. on the West Coast, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. You're live with Nat and the Guy.
Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And today we're talking free speech and Edward Snowden. He gave a speech in Singapore via video call this weekend.
And now apparently Newsweek has discovered that conservative guys like pretty and hot girls.
And Doug Emhoff and Masculinity.
And then we're also talking about the Joker 2 and how terribly it's probably already doing and going to do.
And the return of Trump to Butler, Pennsylvania. The return of the assassinated president.
Yes. So our first story is about Edward Snowden, who's been again in the, what?
Oh, he's been exiled to Russia for quite a while now. Russia seems to be stepping up for free speech, which is startling because it was the West that spoke about free speech for so long, and it was the ideals that Western leaders actually propagated, and it was their ideals and the people of the West ideals of free speech. And now it seems like Western leaders are slowly eroding the ideals of free speech and trying to replace it with something else. But let's look at Edward Snowden real quick.
Sure. So he was speaking at where?
He was speaking at the Token Conference 2049 in Singapore in the year of 2024. I don't know why they call it
2049.
Yeah, I don't know why they called it 2049.
Leaders in our space trying to reject our old traditions, the ones that are valuable, the ones that created the space. I think the lessons are clear. And this is to say that we should defy bureaucracy. We should reject modernity, embrace tradition, and you'll save the world. That's all we have to do. Thank you. Let's go to a question or two.
Okay, that's it. So it was actually quite a long speech Edward Snowden gave. I just wanted to give the essence of it, and he did it. He really rounded up his speech very well in just those couple of sentences. The Western governments, it may be time to defy them because they're trying to put protocols on citizens that are just completely authoritarian and fascistic.
And I mean, we are seeing the degradation of the free speech, and especially with politicians all over the West. I mean, we see Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton recently saying that we need to police speech, as well as John Kerry, who also came out to say that we need to police hate speech and free speech. And yeah.
John Kerry is the worst, man. I don't know if he's eating too much ketchup or what the deal is, but he's got worms in his brain or something.
Well, I mean, RFK actually has worms in his brain and he wants to defend free speech. But I mean, it is like the tenet that kind of builds all democracy and all just leadership and just governments, and the fact that they continue to try to censor and destroy, and what they did also to Edward Snowden is, I mean, proof of what the truth gets you and where it gets you.
Well, it's strange that Russia is the only country where you can really go into exile. Other countries that you go into exile, the CIA will come and kidnap you out of that country, even if there is no exile treaty. There's plenty of examples of that. And most places around the world do have exile treaties. It's very strange that Russia is this beacon of free speech of late. The Telegram, the guy that was running Telegram actually left Russia because he believed in free speech. Now he wants to return to Russia because they're the only ones that can protect him.
Well, I mean, because he's an idiot. And apparently Telegram was giving away users' information to governments and was willing to do that, has been doing that since 2018.
Yeah, but not to the extremes that these governments wanted. That's the issue. These governments want these platforms to bend over backwards, not publicly, but behind the scenes. They want all the data, all the information, and everything else. Edward Snowden made a good point in his speech where he says, it's less about security and knowing what you're saying and more about controls and protocols, meaning they want to say what's acceptable and not acceptable to say online so they can put the guardrails of society on there and steer society in the direction they want into some kind of mass hysteria or mass group think.
Well, because that's where society is heading, to only interact and only live within these spaces. So it is the most important part to police. Going out and policing actual people saying things is not as easy as when you have a full record of what's been said online.
Yeah, after 9/11, it was more about policing individuals. And now it's more about we're coming for the internet and we're going to control the internet. You see this more and more and more with the governments around the world. It depends where these tech companies are headquartered, but like the United States is trying to show a lot of control over tech companies in the United States.
And they're kind of now assimilating towards what China has been doing for so long. I mean, let's not forget TikTok and ByteDance, which is still based off of China, even though people say that there's a CEO in the US, the whole company answers back to the CCP. And I think a lot of governments have started to look at that model and say, hey, if we could control our people as much as China does with the social credit score, well, that would give us immense power and immense, control over not just us, but everybody else.
Yeah, and if you do get a chance to watch this Snowden speech, again, it's the Token 2049 Singapore 2024 conference. It was an absolutely amazing speech. It was about 20 to 30 minutes. I may review it on Monday on my individual show in the morning. It's a little bit more drawn out, but man, he has a lot of good things to say, and he takes questions at the end. And the people ask a lot of good questions. Some of the questions and a lot of the concerns centered around protocols and systems that can be created, such as Bitcoin, to take back control from the government, so the citizens themselves can have privacies and freedoms inside of protocols that can't be controlled by the government, such as free speech platforms that are completely encrypted, and the people that are making the platforms, even they won't be able to de-encrypt them. So if they are captured by the government and the government says, we want this messaging system, the owner and operators can say, we actually have no way to decrypt these messages.
And I mean, we're seeing also, you spoke about it this morning, in Canada, we have, for example, BC 63, which follows a bunch of other bills that have actually been passed. But Bill C-63 is the Online Harms Act. And in it, it says they kind of couched it behind, protecting children in the internet and not seeing things that are inappropriate for children. But if you keep reading and keep going deep down, they're actually requesting that social media companies become a lot more open with the government, creating a whole government ombudsperson regarding the Online Harms Act.
Well, and they have the exact same thing in the UK right now.
Yeah.
And it's under a different name, but again, they're using, we need to protect children online as the protocol to implement hate speech, do away with free speech, and give life sentences out.
No, it's not a life sentence, at least not in Canada. In Canada, it would be up to 1 year imprisonment if they catch you or thinking that you are going to do it.
They've changed it now. So now they're offering life in prison, and they even gone.
But if you actually go through with it.
No, they've gone beyond hate speech now. So they're going to pre-crimes in the bill of C-63.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So if it's a thought crime or a pre-crime, if they suspect that you might do an online harm within the next year, they're allowed to imprison you in your house for a year with an ankle monitor.
Ankle monitor, yeah.
But that's still insane.
If you actually say something that they consider to be hate speech, which would be the mass grave hoax or somebody's gender, or you don't use their pronouns, all that right now under Canadian law is considered hate speech, and they would be able to lock you up for life in prison if you actually say something.
If you go before the Human Rights Tribunal and in Canada, and they determine that you did it maliciously, let's say.
You sound like you're making excuses for the government.
No, I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to,
Well, the government.
Tell the truth.
I am telling the truth.
I know.
And the thing is, the way the government tried to defend this, where they said, "Oh, life in prison is the absolute harshest punishment we can give out, but that will only be for the most severe hate speech." Like, are you out of your mind? That's for like murderers. Mm-hmm. Now, what are murderers going to get? Like, they're giving less and less time for murderers and more and more and more time for hate speech. Yeah,
they keep releasing actual criminals that do, live in-person crimes, and now they're wanting to go after the easier crimes in a way that can be policed online. But I mean, we come from Vancouver. We see the streets of Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal completely taken over by criminals because they have catch and release programs. They go off of essentially DEI requirements as to who to catch and who to release. And I mean, the drug problems are rampant. It's so much easier to try to police the citizens that are actually probably behaving well, but have different opinions and put them online rather than the actual criminals that go and stab people every day.
Well, you may be a little naive. You just think it's happening in big cities in Canada, because I was watching a YouTube from True North today. True North is getting censored for hate speech too, by the way, and they're a news platform in Canada, a major news platform.
independent.
But what I was going to say is that they did have an article today about Brampton, Ontario, which is more small town, and they are having massive riots in the streets because of these students that are potentially going to be deported. And then slumlords as well that are housing these migrants are also protesting because they want to be able to continue to house 6 and 7 people per room, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, the easiest thing to police is going to be stuff online and not the real stuff. And I mean, we see the Canadian government continuing to fail in multiple levels, not just with this bill, but also with the probable ousting of their Supreme Leader, Justin Trudeau. The Supreme Leader, Justin Trudeau.
I went over the Canadian scandals this morning, actually, on my individual show. So if you're interested in knowing what's actually going on with Justin Trudeau right now, there's huge, massive scandals that are shutting down Canadian Parliament. I go much in detail this morning.
But Canadian land.
Why don't we let the hot girl talk about the hot girls in the right?
Well, apparently Newsweek is now seemingly having a problem with the right being attracted to hot girls. And I mean, we know there have been studies saying that people that lean more conservative or more, to the right are better, well-groomed and let's just say hotter. But so Newsweek published this whole article saying that how hot girls became the right's new obsession. And it's crazy that they're putting it that way, but they kind of go through Sydney Sweeney and her rise and how she essentially became very well known amongst, let's say, Republican circles, and everybody started talking about her and how she looked and her femininity and how great it was to see that women were returning to, normality. And here it says, the actress had become a so-called conservative hot girl, a pinup for the modern-day right-wing movement as it attempts to expand the appeal of conservatism beyond the confines of its largely older white male base. And
that's completely untrue, but continue.
Sweeney and other conservative hot girls don't necessarily have any tangible involvement with politics, though some have strong political affiliations, but they have been claimed by the right-wing public figures as their own, whether they appear to like it or not. And here they have like a little ensemble of these supposed purported conservative hot girls. But what does being a conservative hot girl mean? And here they say the conservative hot girl isn't a particularly new phenomenon. A woman talks about it, a professor of who knows what. Women have been positioned through the lens of the masculinist imagery in conservative populist politics for a very long time. Sweeney appears to have kicked off the latest wave of conservative hot girls at a time when conventional beauty standards have been adopted as a purported antidote to wokeness. That word was initially associated with progressive movements, but has since been co-opted by conservative critics to mock what they perceive as excessive political correctness, virtue signaling, or a tendency to overemphasize identity politics. And there's just one last paragraph I want to read about another professor talking about this, saying, this focus on hot girls is a way for the right in the U.S. to fight back against the perceptions of wokeness. Holding up women in a sexualized fashion could be a tactic to reinforce gender stereotypes around women's appearances. And here we see the beautiful Sydney Sweeney again. And
I have no idea who that is.
It's an actress, a new actress.
Okay, she looks
she
okay.
Has big boobs.
I wouldn't say extremely
I mean,
hot,
they
but
like her because she has big boobs. And they talk. Then the article goes on to talk about the sex appeal and how, terrible it is that the male gaze and the whole conversation around conservative circles is about how pretty girls have to be or how attractive some girls are. And this is just, I think it's crazy to notice what actual biological human impulses mean. And it is completely normal for a guy to find a woman attractive. The fact that the left has made all their women look like unbathed swine is not our fault.
First of all, these are not talking points in the conservative circles. All men have always found hot women hot. Exactly. That's why they're called hot women. Now, what's been happening is these cockhold liberal men have separated themselves from the pack and said, I want fat women because I want to get laid because they can't get laid by anybody else. That's the truth of the fact. And it's just absolutely insane to think, guys shouldn't be attracted to attractive women. That would be like saying, women shouldn't be attracted to attractive men. Men are just as sexualized in society as women are. You can see this on YouTube and everything else.
And it's permitted. But I mean, I do think it's hilarious that they're trying to frame this whole conversation for this election, even around, masculinity and toxic masculinity and what is a good masculinity and the people that are reinventing masculinity. I mean,
I want to stay on these hot girls. Let's not go to masculinity yet, because I think that's
it's
I think that's
related.
in the next story. But let's stick on these fat girls first. It's absolutely crazy that they're trying to glorify fat women, and there's repercussions to this. And
body positivity.
I'm not going to try to be nice for the people. You want to shock them into realizing there's serious health repercussions. And if you say, oh, body positivity, it's fine to be any way you want, you're going to have long-term repercussions. I understand a lot of fat people are saying, oh, I'm perfectly healthy. I've gone to the doctor says I'm great. Yeah, but you're still young. Wait till you're old and you're fat and your bones hurt and your joints hurt and everything else. And then you're starting to have depression. There's massive consequences to obesity, and to glorify obesity is...
No, but the thing is, actually, society is moving away from glorifying obesity, because now all the celebrities and anybody who can afford it is on Ozempic. And we're seeing the return of the skinniness and the full skinny trend. And we've even seen Lizzo, the ex-whale, actually start to lose weight and talk about how she wants to, start losing weight. But the fact that this comes accompanied by the progressives and the left still thinking that seeing women as attractive or even displaying an ounce of femininity is wrong means that the patriarchy and the white men are trying to control you and how you dress and how you look, rather than you wanting to be in your femininity, is insane.
Well, it used to be that if you wanted to be attractive, look good, you had to work out, and there's hard work attached with that. And that was a good thing, because that hard work brought health benefits and a lot of other things to it, along with it's natural antidepressant medication. The issue we're having now is being skinny and looking good doesn't come along with any hard work. It's like pop a pill, take some Ozempic, and they're trying to lie to the population saying there's going to be no long-term side effects to Ozempic. Yeah. And that's just completely untrue. The hard work in itself brings a lot of benefits to working out. So popping a pill is...
Well, it's an injury, yeah.
It's going to bring you a lot. You're shooting yourself not in the foot, but in the head, long term.
Well, in the butt, apparently, or I think it's in the stomach. I don't know where you actually put it. But, I mean, it is funny that now, all of a sudden, we're moving away from body positivity, but looking at attractive women is still not permitted, and it's part of the patriarchy and bad conservative men for finding women attractive. It's just...
Yeah, but the culture and everything is swinging away towards crazy liberal, woke, progressive things, and it's going back to this more conservative tilt. Now, I just really hope conservatives can really preach a constructive manner. It's not it's not okay for a girl to look good if she's anorexic or popping Ozempic. It is healthy if she's working out for that body, because it not only benefits her, but it benefits a lot of people.
And it also goes with the whole MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement, and what RFK talks about, and a lot of the
completely agree.
The people that moved away from the Democratic Party, they talk about what you put in your body, what you eat, how the pharma and food industrial complexes are actually taking over the health spaces and making everybody both look, feel, think worse than they ever did before. And it is important to highlight that health should be at the forefront of you looking attractive. You cannot look attractive by exactly injecting Ozempic. You look attractive by actually taking care of yourself.
And I think we're going to go into the conversation of masculinity in a minute, but I will say femininity and masculinity but they both come along with looking good. That's a huge component of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. Male sexuality comes along with working out, which also comes along with being able to defend yourself and your partner and things like this.
The hormones that you need when you work out.
I think it's far more important for men to work out than women. Women work out to look good. Men work out to not only look good, but be able to protect themselves and others. There's multiple effects with what comes.
But also with working out for women, for example. I mean, if they could just start, moving a little bit more, walking around, going to the gym, that actually creates a dopamine response that right now is being completely blocked by every single SSRI, antidepressant, everything else that especially women have been put on, but society as a whole, and I'm not just talking about the States, but essentially the whole Western world. I see it here a lot too in Mexico. People are just, instead of, finding that natural dopamine rush and that by consequence will make your life better, which will make you a more attractive person. It's not about looks only. Being attractive is not only about looks. It's where your brain's at, where your body health, etc. is at.
Well, it's interesting that they literally
want pharmacological
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They literally don't want you working out. They want you popping a pill so the pharmaceutical industry can make millions of dollars off of you.
And not only that, but
it's a pill popping society we've turned into.
Yeah, not only that, but it actually lowers both your stress response, it lowers your cortisol levels, it lowers your it tries to falsely increase your dopamine levels whenever you're on antidepressants or SSRIs. And what does that bring? It brings a society that's completely numb to everything.
Well, I really wish doctors would talk about nutrition and health and things like this and use a more organic approach and really use medication as the last approach. But in Western civilization, this isn't the case. In more poorer countries like Africa and Asia and things like this, very often the society and the government itself promotes good nutrition because they can't afford the long-term consequences of a health breakdown in their society.
Yeah, and then they have had issues with all of that, so they know. And I think the States has the different crisis, which is obesity now being managed by another medication.
Yeah, but I think that's a self-made crisis by the government and the pharmaceutical companies.
And the food industry as well.
Why don't you talk about the wife beater next, though?
No, hold on, because I was going to go into something else about this.
Whoa. I don't want to step on your toes.
No, that I think it's ridiculous that the left and wokeness and everything, and even we see it now with Gen Z, there's this whole emphasis with people that proclaim themselves progressive or feminist or whatever to intentionally make yourself look worse. And I think that reflects really what's going on both inside and how you see the world as well. So whenever you're not caring about yourself, you're not showering sometimes even, or saying like, I don't care what I look like, that actually is reflecting upon how you are inside as well. And the same thing I say about, being obese or having excess fat, it also reflects on where your emotional state is at.
Well, and I will say this, I went through a 5-year period where I couldn't work out, and I used to work out obsessively before that, but now I really understand when you do have an injury or something like that, you might not be able to work out. But when I did have that injury, I was very aware of the fact that I couldn't work out. So I was a lot more conscious of what I ate, when I ate, and things like that. So if you are suffering from an injury or something like that, don't be too hard on yourself. It's nice to, always try to get back. Eventually I was able to rehab myself, but good foods are just important, if not more important than good exercise.
And well, no. So the left apparently wants to lecture us all on what is masculinity and femininity and pretty and ugly and who's allowed to look at who and what gender people can be and how attached to that gender they're allowed to be. But let's not forget that
I think we went to Andrew Tate to Doug Emhoff, who's Kamala Harris's husband.
No, let's not forget. That's what I was going to say. Let's not forget that they're trying to make this whole thing about masculinity and redefining it and what does it mean. But their redefinition Ken doll of masculinity, Doug Emhoff, who is Kamala Harris's husband, apparently, I'm going to remind it, we've already seen this article, Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, forcefully slapped ex-girlfriend for flirting with another man in booze-fueled assault after date to star-studded gala. So this guy got jealous that she wanted to hail a cab. They were in line for the valet, and then he put her hand on the valet's shoulder to get his attention, that he came running to where she was and actually slapped her so hard that she turned around. And this story has been corroborated.
Okay, let me simplify it. She didn't just turn around. She put her hand on a ballet. He thought he was flirting. He thought she was flirting, so he smacked her so hard she did a full circle. And then he shoved her in the cab and wouldn't let her out.
Yeah, and I mean, this whole story...
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. And this whole story has been corroborated, and there's witnesses and there's friends of this person who, this girl seems to be, a Democrat. She's a high-powered lawyer in New York, and they were only dating for 3 months, which also kind of shows his character. And it seems to be pretty much corroborated by now because of these sources. We don't know if she's under an NDA. We don't know if she will ever want to speak up. But there is more to this story than
I will say we don't need
to
get too far into the story. We talked about it the other day pretty in depth, and we've done it multiple times. So I don't think it's really. And when I first talked about it to talk about Kamala Harris. Now I really want to I'm just trying to use this story as a way to talk about masculinity in the modern sense, I think.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say, and there is an update, is that Emhoff spokesperson denies to Semaphore, which is another publication, assault of ex-girlfriend alleged in tabloid report. And I want to kind of read what the statement of the spokesperson was, because for Doug Emhoff, this report is untrue, and any suggestion that he would or ever has hit a woman is false. And instead of just saying a simple, no, he didn't do it, this is ridiculous, they had to go in and kind of pepper it with additional words. And it's not a full denial either. And he didn't deny that.
Okay, so how the story originally came out was the lawyer that he was on the date with at the Cannes Film Festival told a friend. That friend, this story has now been confirmed by the lawyer and her friend. She told her friend the day after this happened. So it's not like this was told just because the election came up. This was something that was known long before the election. Mm-hmm. It's just coming to public attention now.
And it is also, before the DNC, a story also broken by the Daily Mail came out that Doug Emhoff had cheated on his previous wife before Kamala with the nanny and his daughter's teacher, and then impregnated her. And then through some sort of trauma, she lost the baby and was then given $80,000 to sign an NDA. So the nanny cannot speak out about it. We don't know if the girlfriend can. But they're doing this whole thing with Doug Emhoff, the Democrat Party, is that they're trying to redefine masculinity and what being a second husband means.
Well, before we get into that, we just need to say this isn't some kind of smear campaign on Doug Emhoff. The entire reason it's coming up, I know a lot of men might do these type of things, but it's not just to smear Doug Emhoff. It's to say that he's going in front of the public and saying what masculinity is. He's trying to define it. He's intentionally trying to smear Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. The left has spent years now trying to pin, really unverified accounts.
Yeah, but it's not really. They're putting Doug Emhoff specifically up as the face of what masculinity should be and what a man should be, and they're getting him specifically to talk shit on men that are acting perfectly perfect, just like Trump's Ukraine phone call.
Well, then, Trump, I was going to say, has been smeared over and over again. An article from the New York Times this past weekend also just resurfaced all of his accusers. And now we're having actual credible reports of the man that they're trying to hail as this hero of masculinity.
Do you have any of the footage I had from my morning show?
I have what he was talking with Jen Psaki, the old White House.
Why don't you play it for him?
Okay. So he sat down. She has a new show because she has nothing better to do. And she essentially did...
okay, just play the clip. Will be good.
Important part, an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny. I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the
important part, an interesting.
Okay, so that was a shorter clip. If you want more of that, though, he had clip after clip. Okay.
So we do have one where she apparently now is calling, a lot of people are calling him a wife guy because this is a TikTok trend.
There's a pop culture phrase, wife guy, which you've kind of been known as. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard about
it. It's called a wife guy, a proud wife guy. How do you feel about that?
Well, if I do something annoying to Kamala and she gets upset, I'll just show her that article. Right. And I'll say, I'm trying.
Or a t-shirt or a mug.
Yeah.
There are certainly people, you know who I'm going to ask you about, who are not as comfortable with fierce women, strong women, intelligent women. One of them is, of course, running against the vice president, Donald Trump. He seemed to be uncomfortable on the debate stage, and he sort of amused post that about how people thought this woman did better. He's also refusing to agree to a debate, which she's already agreed to. Do you think he's scared of debating her?
Yes, he should be.
There's a pop culture.
And there he is, cocking for his wife. But
Kamala looks like a scared, weak woman. Like, I don't know. And so does Jen Psaki. I remember the girl that had Jen Psaki's job as the White House press secretary before, the conservative one. What's her name?
Kayleigh
McEnany.
There you go.
And she was just amazing. Wow, she would come out with that binder, and if you said something to her, she had the facts to just boom, 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 boom. She was, man, she could take on man, woman, anybody. That girl is what it meant to be strong
woman.
independent woman.
Yes.
And not just an independent woman. She
Smart.
her
Intelligent woman.
and she knew how to play a feminine role as well, talking
Yes.
about her husband and her family and how these things
And not
are
being
important to her.
afraid to do so.
Yeah, she was really a, what would you call it?
A woman.
A representative for other females, I guess.
Yes. For true femininity and the
for true
power that
femininity.
lies within femininity, you don't have to go to masculinity and pretend to be a man to actually be powerful and lay in that power.
And Melania Trump, I mean, she speaks her own mind. Like, she is pro-abortion.
Rarely, but
So she'll say that, even though it's going to rub some people in the Conservative Party the wrong way. But she has her own voice, and she also knows how to play her feminine role. And when they do attack her, which they did nonstop during the Trump administration, she just walked through hell with her head held high.
But I just think it's from Jen Psaki with this Doug Emhoff thing. This interview came out before the second round of allegations came out. The ones about cheating on his ex-wife were already out there. But I think the bootlicking from Jen Psaki and the whole Democratic Party trying to, redefine masculinity through Doug Emhoff, who is, I think, one of the worst examples of what like this I'm a feminist liberal guy can be. Usually, and I'm talking both from personal experience and from, just data, those kinds of guys are the ones that are, I support women, etc., are the ones that are either the most violent against women, that speak up the worst about women, treat women the worst, because they're trying to hide behind that whole I'm a feminist thing.
They just try to hide there, and they get in the friend zone, hoping that one day your boyfriend's going to break up with you, and they can slide in there. Mm-hmm. And once they have a wife, they keep those same habits of being a snake in the grass and bringing that into politics or whatever other industry they're in. You can't trust men like that.
And I mean, also, I don't think wife beating not wife beating, but being aggressive towards women and not knowing how to control your rage is a one-time thing. I think it's a repeated pattern. And do we really want this kind of person in the White House?
No, and I honestly don't think he's doing it anymore, because I think Kamala's probably smacking him around.
I don't know. Usually the roles are usually reversed when in couples. Sometimes when you see that like a woman is super powerful, then it's the opposite way.
She's not super powerful though. She has a powerful job, but she looks extremely weak.
She thinks she's super powerful, so she dominates in the outside world. But I think within the household, it might also be why he's still,
I don't know.
aggressive.
She slept her way to the top. I don't even know if she views herself as powerful. I think she's just
they're
trying
an interesting couple, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they kind of deserve each other for the things that they have done.
Like, I had never heard about this guy, but just watching him in an interview and his body language and the tone of his voice just like irks me the wrong way.
And it's
much like how Kamala does.
Yeah, and I think there's a deeper reason why, because humans can kind of sense, the vibe of somebody. And I think, and it's funny that now, like what Kamala Harris has said on domestic violence is also coming up with these accusations, saying that she condemns fully and that she's calling on officials to take crimes against women more seriously. And even just last month, how she would spend her career fighting for the health, safety, and well-being of women. And these are words that have both come out of Kamala Harris and out of Doug Emhoff, trying to, virtue signal about how much they care about women in the meantime.
Donald Trump doesn't necessarily, he's not going to, he has locker room talk, and he's very egotistical and he's very misogynistic, and that's fine, because whoever he is behind closed doors, that's just the real person, and he doesn't try to hide it. And the fact is, his public policies are protecting women. So he understands the difference between being a misogynist privately in his private life and, having public policies that actually defend and help women and minorities as well, and things like that.
I mean, I'm sure Kamala, and I'm sure all women and all men have said things that they regret, or maybe they're not super proud of.
Well, we know Kamala has.
Friends.
There's all kinds of videos coming out now.
And then just to round out this whole, conservative Republicans masculinity, femininity debate, Bloomberg thought it would be a good idea to also say that Tim Walz's masculinity is terrifying to Republicans. Kamala Harris's running mate has traditional manly man traits. He's also not afraid of women, afraid of black people, or terrified of the future, obviously implying that Republicans are, and that's why they're terrified of him.
I don't know. I just watched did that article come out before the vice presidential debate?
August 9th, yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't imagine them publishing that after J.D. Vance stepped on stage with the deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But I just thought it was really funny with this whole conversation that now they keep trying to use the words reshape masculinity and toxic masculinity, and the Republicans like hot girls, and all of this discourse about essentially what makes us
It's
human.
just crazy. These Democratic husbands are slapping women around, and they're trying to, go after Andrew Tate, talking about he's the worst thing since sliced bread. By the way, they just had to give $40 million in assets back to Andrew Tate, and the lead prosecutor is now off the case.
You keep going on and on about Andrew
I have to
Tate.
inform the people of what's going on with Andrew.
But for example, I don't think his masculinity is not untoxic either.
Okay, but there's certain things that can be toxic about it, and that's fine. I don't even believe in toxic masculinity, so what am I saying?
But he's a toxic human being.
I think a lot of things he says is good. I think getting too caught up in materialistic things, you're never going to get off that hamster wheel, and you're constantly going to want more and more and more and more. And that's probably the worst thing I think about Andrew Tate.
The thing is, I think Andrew doesn't have a values-based, idea or perception of who he is or what he wants to teach people. I think there's way better people to teach masculinity.
Yeah, but he does.
To young men.
He does in a lot of aspects. In certain aspects, maybe not. So.
But I mean, for example, I would say you are way better.
No,
example.
I don't, and quit saying that, please. Thank you.
But I mean, for him to be, this image of a lot of young men, I think they should also, consult Joe Rogan or, I don't know, Jordan Peterson, and somebody that kind of guides them towards
I think you're completely wrong. And
productive.
I think you're completely wrong, and people should be consulting their fathers and things like this.
Of course.
So I don't know.
But
I'm not telling you to go consult a celebrity.
No, but I'm saying there's a lot of kids right now that don't have that father figure, or that have father figures that are, in the whole milieu of gender ideology and trying to convert them into girls.
You can do a whole lot worse than Andrew Tate. So let's go on to the next story.
So apparently the Joker now is not doing so hot, and people aren't really liking it.
Well, before we get right into the article, let's just say the Joker is a musical. This is the Joker Part 2. It's a musical. It has about 15 songs in it.
Well, apparently it's not even a musical, they said.
Well, it has 15 songs in it. I don't know what they're trying to do. And when I say songs, I mean it has the actors singing the songs. It has a 34% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, a 36% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a complete cash grab. Mm-hmm. And I think Rolling Stone is talking about how they told them to go told their audience to F off.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Rolling Stone is, happy about this slightly. They spent $1 billion, a billion grossing hit for delivering something more than a carbon copy of the Angry Young Clown original. But who is this musical sequel for? And I mean, I've seen some of the reviews. Oh, I can't go into it. No, I've seen some of the reviews about the Joker, and it's not what fans expected. It's not even what Joaquin Phoenix and the director wanted, because they didn't want to do a sequel. But Warner Brothers was like, hey, this did really well, so you're kind of obligated to go do it. And then they bring in, of course, the celebrity Lady Gaga, and now they have to make it a musical. Why? Who knows?
But yeah, it was a bad idea. It could have been a great idea because part 1 was amazing, and they did leave it with a cliffhanger. A lot of people said it was a standalone movie, but they did leave it open at the end for part 2, and they made a lot of money. So Hollywood was going to make a part 2, but why not make it right? Why do you got to turn it into a completely different genre like a musical? No respecting man wants to go watch a musical, and this was a movie. This was a movie for incels. At least that's what they promoted as why it made so much money. Hollywood was upset that this movie made so much money the first time around, and they tried to demonize it as a bunch of incels and school shooters that were going to watch this movie. That wasn't the case at all. It was people that wanted a gritty backstory on supervillains and superheroes, much like The Dark Knight Rises was.
And I mean, I think what they keep trying to do in Hollywood is, number one, I mean, the remakes, the rehashes, and the sequels and prequels and etc. But not just with the Joker are they ruining, this superhero, but Warner Brothers and DC have not been doing so hot and had not been doing so hot. So when the Joker actually kind of made some money and a lot of people went to see it, they figured, let's just do the whole same thing we always do and go ruin it. And I think, of course, kind of take away from the main thing that people liked, which was the anarchy part of the movie and the rebellion and the young men standing up and showing what was actually happening in the world in a very metaphorical way. And now I think it's just, ruined. And also the musical part, apparently the songs don't even help to, prolong the film or go with the film's plot. They're just kind of inserted there so Lady Gaga can sing.
Well, the other Lady Gaga movie she did with, what's the gentleman's name from The Hangover?
Oh, yeah.
She did the country movie with him. That was also a musical, but man, that was really well done. They incorporated the songs in there. So it's not to say if the songs blend in seamlessly, you won't go watch a musical, but it is to say the way they did this in The Joker, not going to watch it.
A Star is Born.
Oh, yeah, Star is Born.
Took me a while.
Bradley
Cooper, yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
I had no intention and didn't really want to go watch it, so I never saw it. But
I watched it when it came on Netflix or whatever streaming service it ended up coming on.
Yeah. But I mean, we just keep seeing Hollywood streaming service. The whole thing is kind of crumbling.
Well, I do want to say that this movie was really, it broke out during a time where you have to realize movies take a year, 2, even 3 years to get scripted and made and everything else. Mm-hmm. And this was a time of woke Hollywood financing for part 1. And The Joker was really broke the mold, and what every woke movie was failing, the Joker did the opposite and really succeeded, and it spit in the face of Hollywood. So what they did was try to make part 2, and they try to wokeify it. And what do you know? Go woke, go broke. And that's exactly what's happening here.
And it's going to continue to happen because, as you say, scripts and development of a movie usually take around a year or 2, even more. So right now, all the movies that are still coming out are not even some of the corrected versions of when Hollywood has started to realize, oh, this is not working. Nobody's coming to watch our movies because they're all ideologically based and have no semblance of reality or even storylines or plot lines.
They're trying to re-edit the movies right now because they understand politics, and especially woke politics is not going to sell and people will boycott the movies. But the movies that are now going to be scripted and coming out, I think you're going to just now see conservative movies going into production now. And so it's going to be another year, maybe year and a half or 2 years before. I
wouldn't even say conservative, just like common sense and taking away
that is conservative nowadays.
Yes, unfortunately.
So it's going to be another year or 2 before real mass conservative movies come out that are geared towards, traditional, what people traditionally want.
Yeah, we're just going back to, exactly what people's interests really are. Because what we've been seeing for the past 5 years or so in Hollywood is not what people want.
God, I used to work for the Teamsters in Vancouver as security on film sets for the Teamsters 155. If you guys are watching, good to see ya.
Yeah, we both used
to work. Man, I used to hate some of those productions I was on because I would never want to go home and watch Netflix with something I was working on. And when I first started working for the union, it's like, oh, what is this movie? I want to investigate it. What's it about? And by the end, it was like everything was just woke garbage and I didn't care.
Yeah. And I think that's just the public in general. That's what's happening. So they either have to do something or, YouTube, live productions and independent productions are going to continue to take over, which is not a terrible thing. But, I mean, the whole industry to collapse. We're also seeing the music industry collapsing. We have the
and AI is also going to...
Diddler story.
Is going to accelerate the collapse and it's going to have to be redefined what movies are and how they're written.
And what people want.
Yeah. Let's go into, I think we have
lastly
old Trump.
So yes.
Sound the trumpets.
Exclusive. They watched Trump get a shot in Butler. Now they want to sit as close to him as possible. That man stood there and took a bullet for us and stood up and told us to fight. And that's exactly what I plan on doing. That's
what was the headline for that?
That they watched Trump get shot in Butler. Now they want to sit as close to him as possible.
Oh, okay. Basically, Donald Trump's going back to Butler, Pennsylvania.
This Saturday.
That's where he was originally shot, and it's the return of the king. And a lot of people that were there at standing behind him, and they had the potential to be shot, are going to be put in the exact same seats because they want to be there and they want to be behind him to send a message to not only Democrats but to the rest of the world. You cannot shoot this movement down.
Yeah, and as much as they keep trying, I think that just gives people more resolve and more willingness to be there for him, because we now see the Black community standing behind him because they now can relate both to what is happening to him and what happened to him, and also his already people that were fans of him are even more invested in him.
Well, we're 30 days out now. Thank God for that J.D. Vance, Tim Walz debate, because that really secured Donald Trump as president. I don't think they're going to try to assassinate him anymore after that. They realize J.D. Vance is completely competent and he's a 10 times better version than Trump. And I don't think they want to deal with that yet. They're going to try to do something with J.D. in 4 years, maybe try to assassinate him, but Trump is the easiest form of MAGA they're going to get. Because if you go to RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, JD Vance, I mean, I can go on and on and on. They're 10 times more populist than Trump. Trump's willing to play ball with the other side. And I honestly think, even though they try to kill him twice, and they've just gone after him in every sense, I really don't think he's going to be locking up Democrats. No. I really think he's going to be so distracted with trying to save the country, he's going to let him go. But if they do assassinate him, whoever takes power will come after every single Democrat, and there will be heads on polls.
And I think they also realize now that, they unpolitely exited Biden and saw what happened when Kamala stepped in. Well, now I think they're too afraid to do anything that would shift everything and the polls and the voting and etc. to so close to election. They might try to do it after, who knows? But
I think they really have just a couple moves left. One is they're going to have an alternate slate of electors, just like Trump did before. They've been saying that's illegal. I guarantee you they're probably going to try to do something like that. The other option is they're going to, I don't know, I would say they would try to steal the election, but the polls are getting so far out of whack. Kamala Harris, even if she wanted to steal it, it's going to be obvious at this point, which might cause a civil war. But maybe they want that because they are in control of the military at this point.
And I mean, it's great that he is going and, showing his face and showing bravery to the American public. And as much as he has already shown bravery by going through what he has gone through, not just at Butler, Pennsylvania, but everywhere else, and every other smear attack and financial attack and judicial attack that they've tried to throw at him, he's kind of stood there and he keeps saying, I'm doing it for you, I'm doing it for the people, to fight for America. And I mean, yes, tragically, somebody passed away, but the fact that people are willing to go there even after the death of Cory Carpenter and keep supporting him must be terrifying for the Democrats and for Kamala, because nobody's going to go stand up for her, especially now that her husband's up.
And Elon Musk is going to Pennsylvania with Trump, and he's publicly stated that, which is huge. I really like this RFK angle with Maha, Make America Healthy Again. There's going to be a real change within the Trump administration to change America's health, and they have the people in place. Yeah. And with Elon Musk, you're really going to see the tech industry embrace free speech, because Trump is going to put Musk in charge of a lot of the tech policies and things like this. So you're seeing a lot of these areas that are areas of concern where America is really fallen down. Rather than being the leader, they're laying down and playing dead and letting the rest of the world take control. But now he's got the right leadership in place. And when I say the right leadership, I'm not necessarily talking Trump. Mm-hmm. I'm talking all these other people. And he's already talked about where he wants to put them and what's he want to do with them.
And I mean, it's great that through him, this whole movement has kind of gained more and more legs. A lot of people didn't even think it would go anywhere. The rhinos, I mean, we rarely ever hear about them anymore. It's clear that they've completely lost control of the party. And now letting...
You do hear about them because Kamala Harris has 200 Republicans endorsing her. Yes. And they're all rhinos.
That's where they are at. Yeah. But they've completely
Dick Cheney is the main one. So Dick Cheney is the head of Halliburton, if you don't know. He's the one that started the Iraq War 1 and 2. He's the one that lied to the American public. He's the one that said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He's the one that made billions of dollars off the lives of American soldiers. And his endorsement is for Kamala Harris. So if you want another one of those, you vote Kamala Harris.
And I mean, Halliburton is a military contractor.
The biggest military contractor.
Yeah. But I mean, she also has the endorsement of, McCain's daughter and just the people that go behind her.
All the people,
are obviously
all the
there
people
for a reason.
All the people that made you hate the Republican Party in the 90s and early 2000s are endorsing her. Yeah. And when I say I'm a conservative and I support the MAGA movement, I'm talking about the populist wing of the MAGA movement that Donald Trump is running. There's a convergence happening right now. Yeah. And it seems like that convergence is the rhinos are trying to back Kamala Harris, but they're just exposing themselves so Donald Trump can get rid of them.
Well, it's because they want to go to war, because that's what benefits them. They need that war to keep, being who they are, where they are. And I mean, I'm sure Pelosi is also now terrified after the Vance debate, because they all thought he was going to do terribly. And now I think they have more support than ever. And people are starting to realize who's really backing Kamala and what her real unpolicies are, because she took how many days to show up to the hurricane stuff?
Well, nobody's backing Kamala, because I'm seeing liberal news going out to these locations, and are literally saying they were trying to find a Kamala Harris supporter and they were unable to. And they're saying this on live TV. I almost think the liberals are trying to give this thing to Trump at this point. Like the liberal media is actually a lot. 90% of the time it's still against Trump, but 10% of the time they're saying some crazy wild shit there and they're exposing themselves.
Crazy
and this was
stuff.
never the case before.
Yeah. Yes. That got a little intense there for a minute.
Well, you know, I'm a big Trump supporter.
Yeah, rallying behind the man. And I mean, of course, unfortunately, you can't vote, but if I could, I would totally vote for Trump.
Maybe we'll talk, we got like 10 minutes left, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about Scheinbaum. She came into power the other day. I talked about it this morning just a tiny bit.
Yes.
But
so
for people that don't know, one of you, Claudia Sheinbaum is now the president. Sheinbaum or Ching Chong Baum is now the president of Mexico.
Yes.
She took over from AMLO.
Yeah, she took power on October 1st.
From AMLO?
Yeah, from Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
Okay, you say it better than I do. They're part of the same party, so it's going to be interesting to see what AMLO does, because AMLO says he's going to go into retirement. I think he's too hungry for power. The Western powers, such as the UN and stuff, don't like him. So maybe behind the scenes, he'll converge with the BRICS and be the go-between, because Claudia Sheinbaum is not going to be able to openly support the BRICS. She's going to have to align with the United States if she wants Mexico to survive.
And I mean, Mexico has already this huge presence of, Chinese manufacturing, Chinese companies. They've come in and, helped rewire all of the 5G networks.
80% of the
wireless
telephone infrastructure
has been kind of put here by Huawei, which is a Chinese company. So I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of Chinese interests within Mexico already, and we know kind of where that leads. That's not a good idea, and yet they're still letting it happen. But I think, as you've mentioned before, the fact that Mexico has the ability to play both, Canada, the US, Europe, Western powers, and also the BRICS, and kind of if Mexico's able to maintain kind of
that would be nice,
balance,
but I don't think it's going to happen.
That would help Mexico the most.
I don't think it's going to happen because of Trump. Trump's talking about these hard tariffs. And I think what he's going to do is he's going to come to Mexico and say, we're going to tariff every single good you have unless you do this, 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 this. Scheinbaum's going to have to say, okay, because she's going to want the goods to be shipped into the United States, because that is really what floats the Mexican economy in the end.
Yeah, but I think Trump coming in would be a way better way to manage what could happen with Claudia and kind of stall her and stop her, rather than if Kamala comes in, then they're completely in unison, and with Justin at the top for at least the next 6 months. I mean,
yeah, it's going to be interesting because Poilievre looks like he may take power in earliest December, and then Trump as well, and then Scheinbaum's kind of that leftist politician in North America, and she's kind of sitting by herself. Really, the future of Mexico depends a lot on America. I'm not going to say totally, but as of right now, Mexico is the biggest trading partner with the U.S. So,
and there's already like a slight change also in South America. I mean, we see Milei, we see what happened with Bukele. There's a lot of change also in countries that were a little bit at 1 or 2 steps ahead in the whole, wokeification or DEIification of the countries. Now the people have spoken up and it's turning the other way. But the countries kind of between Argentina and Mexico are still failing to transform quickly enough. And in Mexico, all of this is also just starting to happen. So
and then we were talking about Scheinbaum, and she had her inauguration the other day. She had her regular one, and then she had her Satan worshiping one.
It wasn't Satan worshiping.
Well, it was a lot like the Olympics. Hold on, it was a lot like the Olympic ceremony was. It looked like some devil worshiping.
It was not devil worshiping. It was an indigenous ceremony that also happened. It actually started with AMLO, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. I'm not saying it's not goddamn ridiculous that they're trying to do it, and it's obviously to try to
she's trying to virtue signal.
Yeah,
she's trying to virtue signal.
That's what's annoying about it. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with the devil, but the fact that they're doing this whole separate thing for the people of Mexico, it is obviously a tactic of control, because if you tell the people that they're disenfranchised and poor you, and we will support you as the indigenous people that you are, and you've been so mistreated, you're going to create division. And the more divisions you create within your own population, the easier they are to control and, place and put wherever you want.
Well, it's a huge indication that she did that ceremony that she's going to go completely woke. So I'm theorizing in my head, like, how is she dumb enough at this point when the whole globalist propaganda of extremely progressive ideals is just falling apart? Mm-hmm. Is she stupid enough to go full force into that? Because she could play it smart and push the progressive liberal policy but have a few things to appease the masses that are conservative ideals.
Well, I think she, as many Mexican presidents have been, she's not the only one. She's going to be puppeteered by AMLO. Like, she's not really going to do much unless he, like, something happens to him or he completely removes himself from the picture, which I don't think he will, because he is drunk on power he has been for a very long time.
I don't think she's going to be puppeteered by AMLO. I think she's going to be puppeteered by China or some big player.
What I was going to say is that everything that AMLO has already kind of built towards this whole progressive, idealist, half socialist, half communist, half Marxist ideals that they have, and, you know, the people first, that's going to be taken over to a fuller extent by Claudia, but also with the whole party kind of both backing her up and also steering her in the right directions.
Basically, what I guess we're saying is we just came from Canada, where we've seen the whole life arc of this thing happen, of wokeism, Marxism, progressive ideals, and it's really just starting out here. And you have a lot of traditional liberals in Mexico that don't realize it, and they're supporting Claudia because she's a leftist, but really they don't understand what true progressive leftism is, and where it can go, and the legislation and the wordplay that they're going to try to do.
Yes, and eventually you realize that you voted for what's completely against your own interests and the interests of everybody else.
Oh yeah,
transforming a society from essentially the inside out. Then they've already started with AMLO. This is just going to get progressively, literally and figuratively.
Well, I think
worse.
AMLO may have had some kind of backbone, because to stand up to Trump and say some of the things he said took a lot of balls.
It took a lot of ego and narcissism.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily like the guy, but he wasn't. I think Scheinbaum's going to be even a worse version of what AMLO was, if it's my guess. I think she's going to go even further left, because I think AMLO did have some some conservative things, or some things where he was just smart enough not to go all the way left, and I think she just might.
Yeah, and we know because she has done a lot of papers and stuff in her
Well, she's a climate
past,
scientist to begin with.
Stuff in her past that has, arisen and come up about things she would like to do with the country. But I do think it's going to be under the watchful eye of AMLO still.
Okay, so that would be it for today.
Yes.
I have a show that I have on my own every morning at 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. It's called Live with the Guy. The show you're watching right now comes on every day at 4 p.m. on the West Coast, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and that's called Live with Nat and the Guy.
And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and share it if you dare. And also, we want to do a bit more lighthearted show today, but it always ends up going to a heavy topic. I think it's just who we are. But thank you for watching till the end if you are, and we hope you have a lovely rest of your day and your weekend as well. Happy Friday.
Adios.
Bye.